Greetings everyone, welcome to Chess Advanced. This game was played in FIDE World Cup and it's from the semi-finals. With the black pieces we have Javokhir Sindarov facing off against Nodirbek Yakubboev, and this is going to be a clash between Uzbeki players, and they are, well, brothers in arms, but well, now on the board they are their worst enemies, so they have to just be and play their best game. So let's see what happens here. With the white pieces, Nodirbek goes for d4, we have d5, c4 and just e6. Now just comes knight to f3, knight to f6, and now even going for this knight to c3. This is the three knights variation. This is the English opening. Now just comes c6 and we have bishop to g5, transposing into the semi-Slav defense. And here we have knight bd7 and just c caps on d5, e captures, and now just comes even e3. And so creating this, imbalanced type positions. And now just comes h6, and although you could trade, it's not really a best move, so bishop just goes back. And now we have knight to h5 targeting the bishop, bishop to e5, but just knight caps on e5, d captures, and in this position even g6, just preparing to fiend of the bishop, or maybe just preparing even bishop to b4 as well to castle early on. And hey, bishop to e2 was played, preparing castles for white, but now just comes bishop to b4 as planned. And in this position, with a move like a3, you're absolutely fine. Just bishop captures, b captures, and maybe even in this position you could go for a move like queen to e7, trying to just put some pressure on that pawn. And also, you're preparing castles, maybe keeping your options open after bishop to g4 in this position. But there are a lot more moves in this position you have to be careful about. Let's say h3, then just comes castles, and after queen to b3, just knight to g7, because that f5 square just looks very juicy. Even e6 square somewhere along the line is going to be really powerful. If you castle in this position, then just comes bishop to f5, and if c4, trying to just challenge the center, then just rook a to d8. And my position, I'm really liking. I mean, I don't have to worry about anything else, and that knight can somewhere behind, transpose to that e6 square, and the position is very nice. But after bishop to b4, he just castles was played by white, and now just comes queen to e7, but now even queen to d4. And now what do you do in this position? First, a very nice move, knight to g7, transposing it to e6 to attack this queen that's sitting on the center of the board. But now just comes a3, asking what are you doing with that bishop? Maybe are you interested in capturing that knight? And here he makes a very nice decision, Sindarov. In this position, he just goes back first, attacking the queen and asking, well, just move your queen wherever you want. Queen to d2 was played, and now just comes this bishop to g4, attacking that knight, and also, just keeping this pen alive. And here we have knight to a4 attacking the bishop, but just bishop to b6, and now we trade. Knight captures, a captures, and here queen to d4 again. So he is adamant about keeping the queen there, but it can easily be, switched here. But first, bishop caps on f3 was played. Now just comes bishop captures, and now we have this knight to e6. Is what I was expecting that he would go for. But the trouble is, first, if you go for this knight to e6, then after queen caps on b6, you're just basically down a pawn, so not something you want to do. So in this position, afterwards, here first b5 was played to try and not go for this. Then just comes this bishop back to d1 and castles now finally. But here bishop to c2 now, trying to remaneuver the bishop to the better square, and now this is a good bishop. It just comes this knight to e6, attacking that queen, and here queen to c3 was played. Also, you can go for this queen to d2 line, which is very nice, because here d4 is a beautiful move, because now after this e captures, rook f to d8 first, eyeing this. There is no way you can save it, so you better just let it go. Here rook a to e1, just develop the rooks, and after this knight caps on d4, you cannot capture the h6 pawn just yet because your bishop there is hanging. So here after queen to c3, now you just go knight to e6 back, and after bishop to b3 again, just very nicely asking, well, where you're going to put the knight. Somewhere along the line, if you move the queen, I can just ruin your pawn structure very decently. Rook to d7, then just comes queen to s3. Somewhere along the line, even this is going to be an option. So I mean, you can have some breakthroughs in this position. It's not a completely dead drawn position. A knight to e6, but after this queen to c3 was played, not queen to d2, so not going for all of those lines. Now f4 is going to be an idea. Here queen to c5 was played, asking for a trade, and here Nodirbek obliges. He goes for queen captures, knight captures, and just f4, finally going for the idea. But here just knight to a4 now, targeting that pawn. Do you really trade here and just ruin the pawn structure? Well, not just yet, because first here rook a to b1 defending against, because at the end of it all, it's an open position, and bishops are much likely going to be stronger than the knights. So that's why here he's keeping his chances open, and let's see what happens. And he's just saying that I can trade anytime I want to, because most likely you're going to be keeping the knight here on c4, which is light square, so I can easily trade. Let's see what you got. Here just knight to b6 was played. Now just comes king to f2, but knight to c4. As I told you, here rook f to d1, but now just comes king to g7. Bishop to b3 in this position, maybe hinting at that you want to trade, but now just comes f6 asking for a trade. And although you could go for this bishop captures here now immediately, and after b captures you just go for this e captures, rook captures in this position, and now now just comes b3, just challenging that weird structure. Just rook to f7, because here after captures this is going to be attacked, so you don't want to lose it, and definitely not for the check. Here b captures, now just comes d captures, rook to b6. Rook to b6 is a nice move in this position, because you have to understand you don't want to go rook to c1. It's not a blunder, but you don't want to face b5. Everything gets settled here, and you don't want that to happen. So that's why here not going for rook b to c1, but just rook to b6, and after just grabbing this pawn, here rook b to d1. First putting some external pressure there, and you will most likely go back and rook to c1 in this position. Again, you can defend, and I'll just put some pressure. Most likely this position should have gone for a draw, but still black is the one better, and you can try to push in this position, because you have these outside passes, and normally the person without outside passes has the advantage in the position, or maybe he lies on the better side of the equality that is there. So in classical or in rapid time section, it's always important to just know your position, and how much it's going to be better. And this position is definitely, from the perspective of the black pieces, you want to win this position. This is a very fine position you want to have, definitely in tie breaks. But after f6 here, e caps on f6 was played immediately, not going for that. So just rook caps on f6, b caps on c4, and now here bishop b captures, and now just comes g3, and here rook to e6 was played, just targeting that backwards pawn. Somewhere along the line you're going to double up, and those rooks are going to wreak havoc. But first this rook b to c1, not worried about it at all. But now you can see the position starts to become a little bit shaky, because I told you that b3 move was very much important to challenge those pawns. And although your rook was doing very much fine there, targeting those pawns, you're going to have to bring it back, and you would be the one asking questions. But now once you moved it, b3 is not going to be that much of a threat. Here b5 was played immediately, and just look at the structure. This looks absolutely amazing. Here rook to d4 was played, but now just comes rook a to e8, rook to c3 now, and just comes king to f6. And slowly but surely here Sindarov's position is being much better in this position, and although it's not that easy to break through, but still he's the one better. Hey, king to f3, now just comes even h5, not allowing any kingside push, but now even b3 finally going for it. But hey, just g5, just pushing towards the queen side. Here Nodirbek was very much low on the clock, so what Sindarov is basically doing is just asking him the questions: which structure you want to keep, which endgame you want to go to, if you want to trade the rooks, you want to trade those pawns, how are you going to stop those pawns. And all of these questions he's going to have to answer in less than a minute, and that's going to be very annoying. Here f caps on g5 was played, now just comes king captures, and here just b caps on c4. We have rook to f6 check first before recapturing on switch and sook, king to g2, and just d caps on c4. And in this position you need to be really careful, because you have to understand these are two connected passes or three connected passes, and it's going to be difficult to get rid of them. Your one pawn is not going to be enough. You need those rooks, so you need to be able to play better moves. But the trouble for Nodirbek is that he's very much low on the clock, and here he goes for rook to f4. And I mean, that's what I was hoping he would go for, because here in this position, after king to g6, it's difficult to try and break through, because king to f3, you don't want to trade, and you don't want to allow the structure to get better, or even king captures and get the king activity. Here c5, if you try to go for, then just comes a4, and finally that a4 break works, because here after b caps on a4, you don't want to push the pawn, because, well, if you push the pawn in this position and go for a move like b4, you lose all your advantage, simply because of the fact that I have now this rook caps on c4, and now these pawns are going to be, well, very weak first of all, and you're going to lose all of them. So not going for b4 in this position, b caps on a4, but after rook caps on c4, rook to a8, trying to push the pawns. But it's very simple now, because here I can just equalize in this position, rook captures, and after rook caps on c5, you push, I go back, and yes, you can push, but in this position it's most likely going to be a draw. It's 3 against 1, and you have an outside passer. The king cannot get in time, and also stop all of these pawns, so most likely it would have ended in a draw. But here after d caps on c4, a4 was played, immediately challenging those pawns, and normally it would have been a good idea, but in this position it completely ruins the game. And I'm going to ask you to pause the video, try and find out this one winning move which crushes Nodirbek Yakubboev right on the spot. So have at it. So congratulations to everyone who's able to find this move. The move is a rook to a8, and Sindarov finds it with absolute brilliancy, and less than 2 minutes on the clock. Here a caps on b5 was tried, but now first comes this rook to a2 check, king to g1 was played. And although there is a lot more ways you can go and win this game. He just chooses the simplest one, c caps on b5, and those connected passes are going to be a nuisance. Hit e4 was tried because you want to push your pass one as well, but it's not going to be. It's going to be in vain because here now just comes rook to b2, and here rook to d5 check was played, king g6, and maybe you can have some chances in this position with a move like rook to c5. This is the best move, but here after rook to b1 check, king to g2, rook to b2 check, king moves. Now you have this rook to a6, and what you need to find in this position is actually rook to c1, because otherwise you're just getting checkmated. So after this rook a to a2, you have to understand the rooks on the second rank or the seventh rank are the ones that are most deadliest. And here after h3, basically you don't even have to play a move, you can just resign right here, because you have to understand those two connected passes, and the rooks on the second rank are enough troubles in this game, and you can maybe start to hope for the second rapid game, and maybe you can survive there. But in this position after king to g6, rook to c1 was played, again preemptively doing that, but this just doesn't help because here rook to c6 and those passes are pushing e5, but now just comes c3, and after rook to d3 trying to stop those pawns, c2 was played. But in this position Nodirbek Yakubboev resigned the game as well, and Sindarov wins the first game. And I'm sorry to spoil it for you, but he won the second game as well. Actually, he was able to draw it, and now he pushes forward towards the candidate spot and also a chance to beat the best players and win the World Cup as well. So that's going to be absolutely spectacular. At just 19 years of age, he became the first candidate that's going to be coming out of World Cup, and it's absolutely spectacular. And let's see how he performs in World Cup. But before that, let's see how he performs in candidates as well. But first, we're going to have to just deal with the World Cup and the finals that's going to be happening between him and one other player that I will not name, but I will show the game to you. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll be coming back with some of these amazing games, so stay tuned to the channel, stay updated, and I'll be seeing you guys very soon. Thank you very much for watching.